Can we just take a minute to give a round of applause to how brutal, crazy, exciting, and every other emotion you could probably list off that these 13 episodes truly were, because holy hell, I mean, the only way you could sum up this episode of My Hero Academia is that, more or less, the characters survived the battle, and that goes for a good handful of the heroes. Even though, yes, some, such as Midnight, are clearly, they gone. They ain't coming back. I think that's pretty clear based on the directing of who they showed were in hospital beds and whose bodies were left, well, let's not focus in on them. Most of the villains ended up surviving, but here's the thing, and what I've been saying time and time again, is that if you can't win here, how are you ever going to win against Shigaraki? Especially given the fact that he was at such a disadvantage. Not only was most of the fight he had no quirk, and he was still slapping fools left and right, he was woke up from that test tube far too early, meaning he wasn't even at his maximum potential. You put that hand back on his face, I mean, it's even worse now than I was ever expecting. I thought I was already expecting worst case scenario. So, is it completely hopeless? Of course not, otherwise, therefore, the show would then just be a massacre the next time they fight. And while it can still be that, it's the difference between everyone almost immediately dying and the characters regrouping, putting up a fight, putting up a fight, putting up a fight until the show eventually wraps up for good, right? But it doesn't change the fact that this is, without a doubt, their most humiliating, their most devastating, and their worst defeat yet. And honestly, if you're a betting man, right now Shigaraki's the one to bet on. Now, I do got a full live reaction available on my Patreon if you're interested, so do consider supporting that if you want to see that. But let's talk about this one. I mean, this was an arc that has been hyped up for some time, more than even last season, like a couple of seasons, people saying like, this is what they were excited for. And I have to say, I really feel like the hype delivered. It wasn't one of those things where I felt like it was too overblown to the point that you couldn't enjoy it, because when you look at the production of this season, you know, there's always the nitpickers, people who will with that fine-tooth comb find something to complain about, but when you actually look at the brutality of this season and the amount of realism they put into the most subtle of areas, to obviously some are very easy to notice, but there's a lot to the destruction of one's body that really makes it feel painful. Like, you're like, goddamn, this might be a drawing, but you can feel it through the screen. You have the obvious moments like Deku's arms dangling around like there's not even bones left, it's pure jelly. That is disturbing, and that is just frightening to imagine, like, what if they can't heal him and like he's stuck with that. Sure, we get to see the frog tongue in action as he's basically chasing after Shigi, but still, it looks painful. You have my boy Basginus, whose eyes are almost popping out of his skull at times. Like, he's controlling everything to his absolute breaking point, to the point that every blood vessel in his eyes not only shattered, there was moments in this episode where he was struggling so much his eyes were like this far out from his skull, it looked like. It was just intense. You have the way they're detailing the blood in this season. Typically when anime details blood, it's a very flat red color. You know, it's just a lot of red splatter effects because a character got stabbed, a character got tossed into a wall. But what, if you really pay attention, I really feel like the past 3-4 episodes of characters getting annihilated in this show, there is a thickness and a realistic animation technique to the blood. Like, you can look at Endeavor, like there's a moment where like Endeavor, I think Todoroki, a few different characters were just like coughing up blood, and it was far too realistic. And I just love the fact that for an arc that is all about shattering hero society, the fact that Shigaraki can be removed and not finish what he started, but still say, if that isn't a victory for him, I don't know what is, because you shattered them. They will take who knows how long to recover from all that, and most importantly, the morale of not only heroes, but the people they work for, the civilians, the trust, not even just like the trust that they can trust them to be good people. No, the trust that are they enough to stop it? And if Shigaraki says, civilians, follow my words or you will die with the heroes, how many civilians are going to pick up that offer? a lot are probably going to pick up the offer. This isn't something that Hero Society can easily recover from, not only physically and mentally, but the long-term effects of how Hero Society is viewed after the crushing defeat when your number one hero and everyone else in between wasn't enough to stop the most devastating force. And seemingly that devastating force is even more devastating now that he's retreated with that hand on his face. And that's what was crazy about watching this, because there were some cool moments that where I was like, oh, maybe this will be like the way Deku extends the fight. Like, he starts talking about his danger sense. It's essentially a spider sense, right? And it's handy, right? You can predict or at the very least get a warning that bad shit's gonna pop up, but just no one was enough. And that's what's, I think, so refreshing about this arc, is that not only did you let the villains win more or less, and people might want to make the argument, well, both sides didn't actually win, you know, both suffered some defeats and some wins, but all things considered, when you look at the long-term effects of what this will do to either the villains or the hero side's gonna suffer a morale decrease, shatter, they might not even exist after this. Where Shigaraki's side, even if you lose twice, and Spinner seems okay, Compress kind of looked like was killed, but I'm still up in the air on that one. Yeah, they lost and they had some suffering, but it wasn't to the same degree. So I think all things considered, you can say both sides survived the battle, but in terms of who just won the war, right now it feels more on the villain side. And that's pretty crazy to see My Hero go in that direction, because these types of shows never really go in that direction, right? Of course, it's not completely helpless. There's no way the show would continue past another core if it meant just constantly the heroes would never have a W again. But it does feel like this is the beginning of the end of the formula that you came to expect, and the type of regroup, rebound, you lost one, you win the next. No, they might lose the next three, and, you know, we'll keep slimming down the numbers that we have to the point of an all-out final battle where, you know, for someone like Deku, he now looks at it as he recognizes that Shigaraki is really being held down by some demons in his head, and he can recognize that he wants to be saved, sort of a thing. So we'll see how they go about it. I will say, the way they handle that whole concept, you see it all the time in shows like these, but there's something about the way they detail it with Shigaraki and knowing what we know about his past and how Deku, you know, he is someone who wants to be a hero for all. If there is a way to save someone, he absolutely would want to do so. I mean, you can even look at Hawks, right, with Twice. Hawks, time and time again, wanted to give that man a way out, but just, he wouldn't accept it. He was too deep into the conspiracy, all things considered. So, I don't know where you go. I mean, I don't think there's an episode next week, because everything usually takes about a week off when it gets closer to the New Year's in that area. So, I think we will have a 2-week break, but I think this is a effective stopping point. There is a preview. I only saw a couple of seconds of it. Just, it looks like Aftermath. It looks like characters collecting themselves, and I know some people are worried about Eri, but like, Eri can't just heal everyone magically. It will take her a very long time to have the energy to repair one person. As it stands, that one person you would probably want to be used on Eraserhead, given that Eraserhead's the reason everyone isn't dead right now, because without him removing the quirk for half the battle, everyone would have been dead before we even got half of this season, right? So it's one of those things where the stakes are there, the consequences are there, and things just can't magically actually be erased overnight, sort of a thing. And I think the thing that makes it so much more painful is that it's the lasting effect of what society will view Hero Society as that is the most damage. It's not the characters bloody in a bed, it's what society will think of them. And there's already some glares we're seeing in this episode, and I don't know where they go from here, but I'm excited, if not worried, to see where. But thoughts and feelings yourself on this episode, this first core of season 6 of My Hero. Whatever you're feeling, do let me know down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. Now, like I mentioned, there's a full live reaction to today's episode available on the Patreon. You can also get video shoutouts, there's early access on certain videos, a bunch of fun stuff, so do consider that if you so wish. So, until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.